Hello, Ben here. Hope you're having a great day and welcome to Benjy's Cafe Podcast. My guest this week is the actor Nic Greenshields. Nic's theatre credits are longer than both of our inside leg measurements put together and has played some of the biggest roles in musical theatre. Nic has starred as the Phantom in Andrew Lloyd Webber's smash hit musical The Phantom of the Opera at Her Majesty's Theatre London and Inspector Javert in the global phenomenon Les Miserables, both in London's West End and on the UK and Ireland tour. And whilst we're at it, you can add to this Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein at the Garrick Theatre, Guys and Dolls at the Savoy, and Sondheim's Into the Woods at the Royal Opera House. Nic has also appeared in the 25-year anniversary concert for Les Miserables at London's O2 and Phantom of the Opera at the Royal Albert Hall. And his on-screen credits include Cilla with Sheridan Smith for ITV and De Lovely for Paramount. We chat Nic's success and his happy work-life balance, plus the benefits of exercise for good mental health, including Nic's love of running, and cherishing life's simple moments, and making memories with friends and loved ones.
I think now, and entering my late 40s, I just want to spend time with people. I really want to make memories and moments that aren't just all job related. Yeah. I've got a lot of those, and there's certain people I think I'd just love to see them again. You know, as we all know, life is busy and you can put things off. You shouldn't put things off. Phone that person, make that arrangement. You know, because I've had a few friends suffer, loss and different things, and of my age, and you kind of go, we're not invincible. We're just passing through, and so just make the best of every moment you've got.
Yep, he's one of the best. Can't wait for this one. A voice from the gods and a heart of gold. Welcome to Benjy's Cafe Podcast, Nic Greenshields. Good morning, Nic. How are you?
I'm good. It's so odd when you read out that list. It's like a eulogy, isn't it, for a funeral? It's like that's what I've achieved in life. But yeah, no, I'm great, mate, and it's lovely to see you. And I'm really honoured that you've asked me to come on your show and have a little chat this morning.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Honestly, Nic, it's so good to see you. And just before anyone watching this on YouTube, if we look a little bit Colin Clammy, it's because we've both done a bit of exercise this morning, haven't we? Nic's got his towel out. It's like we're at Wimbledon Centre Court, but it's warm today. But what a lovely start of the day. Do you find that really gets you going, Nic, in the morning, just a little bit of exercise?
Yeah, I love walking. I'd love to go on a Yorkshire Dales trek for 4 or 5 days on my own, or up to the Hebrides. But yeah, I kind of got into running over the lockdown period, like a lot of people needed to get out and sort of clear my head. And then I say I don't do it every day, but I try and do some exercise, whether it be a little 5K or getting 20,000 steps, whatever, just to keep the mind sort of, ticking over. And it's a good bit of me time. I'm so busy doing lots of things all the time for other people and dashing about. So when it's just me, often I take my dog with me, which is lovely. And yeah, just as we get to, as you said, men of our age, you need to keep a bit active, don't you? They'll do chair stretches and things and that. But yeah, no, all is good.
What prompted you to get the runners out, Nic? Were you at home or on tour? It's because it is that initial just right, let's get out there. It's so lovely, but when you realise the benefits, it's just like, like you say, it's some solo time and just to think.
So when lockdown happened, I think the first lockdown, I remember I was on tour. We closed in the March, and I think it got to September, and gradually most people had gone back to work, but theatre was closed for the foreseeable. And we had a photographer in the borough where we were living, Walthamstow at the time. And he was doing pictures of families on their doorsteps. And he came round and did one of us. And when he sent it back, I was like, oh my God, I looked horrendous. I'd put on loads of weight. And I just was like, my kids and my wife looked beautiful. And I was like, I look horrendous. So I was like, I need to get out and start running, need to start doing some active exercise. And I literally couldn't even run without stopping doing like 1K. And I kept a log over a month. And by the end of it, I'd sort of got up to, I was never doing it for time or anything like that. I was just doing it to sort of, get out there and clear my mind and feel better about myself. And then I was up to like sort of 10K by the end of the first month. And I was like, I need something now, like a goal to work towards. So I entered into the Royal Parks half marathon, which, you know, I did, and I sort of did it, I suppose, in about 2 hours, 40 minutes, which I was really pleased. But, you know, there's loads of people posting saying, oh, I ran it in an hour and a half. I was like, oh my God, how do you do that? But it just sort of started from there. And then I did the marathon in memory of a friend's mum who died sadly at the start of COVID. So it was a really hard time for them. So I thought, you know, I'm going to raise some money for target ovarian cancer. And I did the marathon. I mean, it was touch and go because I was on tour at the time, and a lot of the cast members, you know, were very worried, sort of behind my back, behind closed doors, going, "We need to tell him he can't do this. You know, he's not training enough." But during the tour, I sort of had a false start where I went out for a run one day in Manchester. It was a Sunday, and I was feeling down. I couldn't get home for the week. So my wife phoned me and said, "Look, just go out for a little run. You'll feel so much better." So I was like, yeah, okay. So I left the apartment at like 10:30, and within about half an hour, I sort of took a turn and went up this road, and there was some ladies in like tutus and fancy dress. I was like, oh, it's a little fun run, Sunday fun run. So I joined them. And as we went along, I kept thinking, this feels like more than a fun run. And we got to a sign that said 10K, and then it got to 11K, 12K. And I phoned a friend and I said, you know, Dean, I'm on this run. I don't know where it's going, but I've gone right out of Manchester. Can you find out what it is? And he quickly phoned me back and he went, it's the Manchester Marathon. It's 26 miles long. And I was like, I'd already gone out about sort of 7 or 8 miles. So I thought, even if I turn back now, it's going to be 16 miles in total. But obviously you've got crowds of people all along the roads, and that everyone's cheering you on. So you can't just dip off, you know, and just sort of get out on these barriers and things. So I ended up completing it. And I think I did 21.5 miles of because my phone died at the end. So I obviously didn't charge it enough.
Yeah.
I got my medal. I went across the finishing line, and I didn't really feel like a fraud because it wasn't like I just, you know, gate crashed. It was a genuine mistake, but it kind of spurred me on. I thought, well, if I can do that off the back of, you know, not mentally thinking I'm going to run a marathon today, 21 miles, I was like, you can achieve anything if you put your mind to it and just get out there. And so I've entered again this year. I'm running again for Target Ovarian 4 years later, in 2026. So I think I've got about 8 or 9 months training now. But yeah, no, I just love it. And you know what the benefits are, you know, as you get older, to get out there in the fresh air, get the lungs going, get the mind active. And just, yeah, have a bit of thinking time. I find it really good to clear my head when I'm feeling down, or I feel depressed about something, or I feel like, you know, I'm not on my A game. I'm not the best version of me. It's really good to get out there and just do it, you know.
You can just lose yourself, can't you? And it's such a great reboot. I completely agree, Nick. And also, you touched on a really great point. Like, a lot of people don't realise when you're a working dad, an actor, especially, you're on tour, wife at home, children at home. There's a lot of pressures that bring. You've got to be on your A game for the job in hand, but you are away from home. You're away from the core of your family, aren't you? And that is tough sometimes. So I think it's fantastic that you found something that just made your spirits feel just a little bit brighter in that moment, because it is a difficult existence because we have to work, don't we?
Yeah. And I think, you know, back in the day when we toured together like 5 years ago,
1974, wasn't it?
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast. You know, I was on tour because I wanted to tour. I wanted to go and see places, and I wanted to travel, and the excitement of going to different theatres. But, you know, this period of my life, I'm very much on tour for the job. I'm doing the job to earn an income and support my family and pay my mortgage, etc. And so when you've been to Birmingham 6 or 7 times before, the excitement of seeing Birmingham and going out every night isn't the same as when you were in your early 20s, you know. So I very much, and like you said, when you're doing a show, especially a musical, that you have to worry about your voice and you know, vocal fatigue and delivering these iconic songs or performances every night, 8 times a week. Certainly for me, I just didn't really go out, and it wasn't because I was boring. It was just because I needed to just rest, and I would just count down the days until I'd know that I was either going home straight after the show on Saturday night, or first thing flying out of Aberdeen, you know, the 5:30 flight EasyJet to Gatwick. So I could just I could just get home for 24 hours. And, you know, it was exciting times and they were great times. But certainly as I've got older, I'm much more of a home bird, and I just want to be in my own bed I don't want to be climbing up Nana's staircase at 2 in the morning, trying to get past the cat and all that kind of thing.
It is a nightmare. When I think of some of the digs I've had over the years, I think the worst I had, I paid 15 quid in Cheltenham, and I was literally on a camp bed in somebody's garage for the week. But you do it, don't you, because you're young. And like you say, it's the excitement of touring. What I love that you mentioned there, Nick, as well, the pressures of delivering these iconic songs, my goodness. I can hardly compare My Widow Twankey to your Javert or Phantom, but you do have to look after yourself, don't you? There's a lot of pressure on you, but also from the audience, because they know these pieces inside out.
Yeah, I think just talking about the pressures firstly is that there's obviously the pressure of just delivering the job, what's expected of you as a performer 8 times a week. Then you've got the pressure of the audience, because for many people, certainly like a show like Les Mis or Phantom, they hold it very dear to their hearts. And often you get generations bringing back, you'll get grandma who took daughter in 1985, and now they're bringing the granddaughter or the great-granddaughter, these generations that are connected to these shows that have been running, Les Mis 40 years this year. It's mad. But then you get the pressure from the management, because the management has evolved over the years, that more and more people have been brought in to keep these shows at a certain level. And so you have, if you liken it to football, you'll have the chairman, the CEO, the board, the football, the assistant manager, the youth coach, and all these people have a different opinion of what the show should be. And they all come at various times throughout the run. And so you do find yourself sometimes being pulled in different directions. And that can play with your mind really, a lot, because you're trying to please so many people. And sometimes at the end, you just got to stick to your laurels and think, this is me and this is the interpretation I'm going to do of this role. And I can see from the audience reaction that for me, it's the right interpretation, because it's getting the reaction. And, they stand at the end of the show and they're in tears, and, so you must be doing something right. And I think just with the delivery of these songs, obviously people want them to be sung really well, and you have to just really look after your voice takes a hammering every day, because you're talking like we're talking now. It's a muscle that's overused a lot, and so the vocal rest that you can get, I would just try and be very quiet in the day, and sleep. I'm a real night owl. I love staying up late, but I did find that if I would go back to my digs, certainly when I was doing Les Mis on tour, and try and go to bed before midnight and get a really good night's sleep, and then be up early, maybe be up at, I say early, but 8, 9 o'clock. And then I just feel, I could be active throughout the day. My body would feel energized, and I'd go into show mode at 7 o'clock, and it would be a lot easier to deliver. You find what's right for you. But, I was lucky, because I'm sort of like you, like a high baritone, maybe a bit of a tenor here and there if I needed to be. But sometimes having a voice that is a bit low and bassy helps for those roles like you've played, I've played. But, I've had friends my friend Louise, who, she's been in Wicked as Alphabet, and that pressure of waking up every day, and you're just constantly checking your voice out every hour throughout the day. You can't really enjoy those roles, because the pressure that comes with them is immense. And I suppose it's in reflection that you can only really enjoy the experience after, when you look back and you can look at photos and think about, the opportunities if you did West End Live, all these things that came. But at the time, they're really consuming and hard, because, to sing 8 times a week, I think is a lot, especially the matinee days. But, I worked with some opera people, and, they won't do more than 2 or 3 shows in a 10-day period or something. And so,
they've got it right,
we're a tough, we're a tough bunch, I think, the musical theatre performers, and we do get on with it. Well, from doing Joseph, you must have been doing some weeks like 10, 12 shows. That's crazy.
It was, but 12
you do it,
shows a
you?
week. Yeah. And you do. You just, but
3
also,
on a Saturday.
3 on a Saturday in Tan. It was crazy. By the third one, I'm mid Canaan days, thinking I'm in, blooming, Snoopy the musical or something. It's kind of, you sort of lose track of where you are. But But you're so right. There's that pressure there, isn't there?
I
Down
got
in
to
the
that
depths.
point now where I just want a really easy gig. I say to people, I love Chitty. I've never been in Chitty, but I saw Chitty at the Palladium 20 odd years ago. My friend Emma was in it, and I worked front of house for a few months. And Freddie Lee's, this old actor I'd seen as a pantomime dame years before at my local theatre. He was playing the toy maker, and he didn't appear until like Act 2. Had a couple of lovely scenes, and I remember he used to get the bus home from outside the theatre to like Chiswick or somewhere, and I thought that's the kind of gig you want. Own dressing room, no singing, come in, have a nice little part, and go home. So I'm waiting for the agent at some point to phone me, but no, nothing's come through as yet. The Phantom, that was the worst one, because you go to Music of the Night is like world famous. People know the song, and it comes out of nowhere. Like you just sort of sing and the chord, and you can hear a pin drop. And that was the one where I thought every night, God, this is hard, because they all know it. They all know it. It doesn't matter whether they're tourists and English isn't their first language. They know the tune and they know the song. And it's like a 5.5 minute marathon of just really controlled singing. And that was hard, because I was standby and then alternate. And it was a tough gig, that.
And the feeling when you've nailed it and you hear that response, that must be so wonderful, and just contrast that to the feeling of the first time of getting in that chair, getting the mask on. I remember I used to do it in front of my mirror at home with a size 3 free range egg carton with a bit of gaffer tape. That's the nearest I've got to playing it, Nick.
Well, when I got the gig, I'd had about 6 auditions, and I thought I'd done my last one. And I remember my agent called me and said, "How did it go?" And I said, "Well, I've done it now." And he said, "Yeah, we can't do any more." And I threw my my music and everything in the bin. And this was back in the days. It wasn't drop boxes or anything. It was literally like the music was sent to you in a brown envelope to your house or to your stage door. I threw it away, and then I got a call the next day, and they said, "Oh, they want you to go and have a vocal session with Mary Hammond and the team, just to check that that you could do this." And I was like, "Oh my God, I've chucked it all in the bin." But then I had one more audition after that, and I went to the theatre. And there was about 20 of them all sat in the stalls of Her Majesty's, His Majesty's now, theatre. Yeah. And I walked out onto the stage, and the director was like, Nick, just come down into the auditorium. So I went down the steps, and they sort of stood at like row C in the stalls, and they're all in front of me, like spread out. He said, "Oh, we're not going to sing the song today." And I was like, yes. And I thought we were just going to have one of those things. You hear these actors who go, "Oh, I just had a chat with the director," and then they just offered it to me. I thought it was going to be like that.
That's going to be your chat story.
He said, "Oh, we're not going to sing it. We're just going to speak it. You're going to just speak it as text." And I was like, God, what, in my head? And I was like, just nodding away. He went, "Yeah. So when you're ready, just go with it." And I was there, and I was like, nighttime sharpens, heightens each sensation, really. And I was like, God, this is GCSE drama, back in the day. And I was like, it was like really excruciating, painful inside. I was like dying. Yeah. And then I finished, and he just went, yeah, great. Yeah. So I got my little Fame satchel bag or whatever I had or something, and just walked out stage door. And then the casting director phoned my agent and said, when Nick was called down into the auditorium, he said, "I thought he's going to blow this," because he looked completely gormless. Because I think in my head, I was like, I just didn't expect that. I've never had to do that ever since, and I'd never done it before. And he said, but he really rose to the occasion, and we'd like to offer him the role. And I was like, oh my God, But it was a good exercise, I think, because it made me go, do you know what? Sometimes you do just need to read the words out and forget about. I think by that point there was other great singers, and there was anyone could have done it, but they just wanted to see what else you could bring to it, I suppose. And I sort of just edged across the finishing line with it. But I had a great 2 years in Phantom. It was a wonderful wonderful experience, and beautiful show, really great company. You know what it's like, as you get older, especially, that it's often the people. It's not so much the job; it's more about the people that you work with. And I think that show's unique because it has all different talents, from opera singers, people who are musical theatre actors, musical theatre singers. You've got your ballet girls, and so everyone's sort of, it's this good mix of people and all ages. And a massive thing I always say to people: every room has got a window. Which people go, "What do you mean?" I'm like, because if you work it, like, did you do Joseph at the New London? Is that where you?
Yes, yeah.
No, there's no windows in that theatre, like backstage. It's all underground, and it makes such a difference to your daily kind of,
Yeah.
life, that you can go in and actually see daylight, or have a window in the summer to open. But yeah, it's a brilliant company, and all my friends that have done the show always turn around and say that they had a great time during it. Because most shows I've always just done a year and then moved on. But
Yeah.
Phantom I did 2 years, and then Les Mis I stayed longer into the tour, and then COVID happened, then I went back, so it sort of became a 3-year period really. But yeah, very very lucky. Just, when you read out like that list and you think, God, all I ever wanted to do was like one show. I got a VHS tape given to me of the 10th anniversary of Les Mis, and I'd already seen Les Mis in London. But that 10th anniversary, I was like, God, if I could just be in that one day, and I could just be him in the background.
Yeah, it's a wonderful show, my goodness. I do remember, I think, at the New London, there was one small window on the stairwell heading up backstage. And this got me through the 3-show Saturday day one week. I looked over, and the couple over the road in the apartment were having a bit of slap and tickle. I was like, crikey. I tell you what, my colours were on fire after seeing that, I tell you. What I love, Nick, you mentioned there getting that, the VHS video there, kind of sparking your excitement really about going into the business, thinking about, this is something I'd like to go for. Maybe like myself, I was very into my sport, and, there wasn't really ever on the radar within my family going into the business, but I knew from, watching a video, or I used to rent out the Cats album, the Phantom album from the library, my goodness, and would listen. I used to pretend I was in Joseph in front of the mirror in the hall. I used to pretend I was Reuben, and ended up playing the part. And it's kind of bonkers, isn't it? And at that point, though, I thought, how the hell am I going to get from this kid in Birmingham wanting to do that to being on stage doing it? And I just wondered, for you, was that quite a tricky route for you, or were there places nearby that encouraged your talent even at a young age?
Yeah. It's funny because I did the same as you, and when I teach students, or I go into colleges, and I'm like, you have it so lucky now. You can just put anything into your phone, and you can watch a clip on YouTube. You can download lyrics. But I remember going to the library, and you'd have to like rent out an album, or rent out, hire a songbook. And if it wasn't in, you had to like pre-order it for the next 2 weeks, and it came back. But Joseph was definitely Joseph and Oliver were a turning point for me in shows that I saw at the Palladium, like Joseph in '91, and then Oliver in '94, because they were big shows, and I was like, my God, this is really exciting. And I remember seeing Nick Kolokos, who's a tall guy like us, playing Reuben, and thinking, God, and I wasn't that tall when I was that, but I thought, God, he's a big guy, and like he's doing this as a living. But I found Amdram. I found like a local youth group when I was like 12, 13, 14. And, I did some shows with them, which was great. But again, I wouldn't say that it was completely on my radar. Like, there wasn't people really like then going from there on to bigger and greater things. It was very much like a fun activity to do. And then probably the turning point was the NYMT, the National Youth Music Theatre. And I was in Annie at the Edinburgh Festival 30 years ago this year, 1995. And when I look back on the people that were in those companies at that time, and then the following year, I then was assistant choreographer on, because it's all about giving young people the chance. So I was then interested in choreography, and I assisted Kate Shepherd, who was a choreographer on Bugsy Malone, and that had Sheridan in. She was Tallulah at 13, and
God.
the thing was, I think what was unique about NYMT was that these kids all had a passion, but they were from all walks of life, all across the UK. And then that was the catalyst for me finding out about Lanes, which was the college that I then went to and trained at. So, but yeah, I didn't come from a family, certainly not a theatrical family, and certainly not a sort of, I wasn't shoehorned or pushed into it by any means. I just kind of did it off my own back. And I think in many ways, I've always taken it with a pinch of salt. I very rarely, and my friends will vouch for this, I'm not a jealous person. I'm not, if I don't get a job, I'm kind of like, and I feel for people who sit and cry all weekend about not getting something, but someone's always not going to get it. We can't all get it. And I think, I don't know where that came from. Maybe that was just, the training that I had in my early years through doing Amdram and things that I just like, I take it all with a pinch of salt. I just kind of like, I've been very fortunate and I don't have any kind of, say, drive. I just go along, and if something happens, something happens. I'm not trying to shape or have a career. I love my dog, I love my kids, I love my wife. I just want to see friends. Time is really important. That's the main thing. That I've had a great time doing it as a career, but I think there are things now trying to get that balance in life of like, I'm doing panto this year like you are, and I'd be happy probably if I did panto and then one little other thing throughout the year, short little run of something. I'm not chasing the What's on Stage award or something like that. If you get my drift, but I've stayed in it. Someone said, "Oh, you've been doing it for so long," and I was like, I didn't intend to. I just went with it, but I only do it because of the people. When COVID was happening, I worked at the drive-in, which was a contactless, people come and sit in their cars, can watch a movie, socially distanced, etc. And we would deliver food to their cars. And everyone that worked there were dancers, actors, twirlies. And it was one of the best jobs I ever did. And it wasn't a performing job, but everyone who worked there were performers. And it was just brilliant, and it's always been the theatre community are special people, I think. And, that's why I've stuck around for so long. I have tried to get out and do other things, and then something always sort of pulls me back in. So as long as I keep meeting lovely people, I'll keep doing it, I think.
Oh, well, we're resilient souls, aren't we? My goodness, I think we have the ability to try and keep a positive look on life, and that helps us whatever the situation. Certainly during COVID, likewise. I was on checkout 18 at Tesco. Absolutely loved it because it's with fun people. You're making people happy, and you're making the most of what was a pretty naff situation. And I love your attitude about that balance, Nic. Like, that's what I enjoy about my life. Like, I love my little hit at Christmas. I get to be on the mic during the cricket, entertaining a crowd, and it's just, I feel so settled in life. Do you? So when I am on stage, it's like this feeling of fun and happiness is just so heightened. But I know that I'm not going to crash like I used to in my early career because I've just got that lovely balance. It's such a comfortable feeling, isn't it?
A friend of mine, he wanted to really shape his career and go down that straight acting route and everything. And he's done a completely different job. He's living a normal life and he's got children and he's loving it. And he said to me recently, he came to see me in a show last year, and he was like, I do miss it. He said, but I'll never experience those incredible highs, which were few and far between, but I won't miss those incredible lows that were more and outweighed, and I sort of thought about that for days after, and I thought it is really hard when you are putting everything into trying to get a job and you just don't get it, or they don't phone you, or you're still on hold and it just sort of peters out. And I thought, most people, I've certainly had people in my family, like cousins, like, oh, he's being made redundant. And I was thinking, God, I get made redundant like 15 times a year. I start a job and and I don't know what the next thing is. And certainly as I've got older, I've sort of said, come on, Nic, you need to be a bit more responsible now because you've got kids and whatever. But I do think it is about life balance. And Someone said to me, without getting all deep, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, I wish I'd made more money," or "I wish I'd played those parts." It's like you just wish you had more time.
Yeah.
And time with people is, irreplaceable. And I think I've spent a lot of time in theatres 6 days a week on the road, traveling to a venue on my day off to get there for the night before, and I just like, I'm very simple. I don't need a lot of money. I like to walk with my dog. I'd be happy to sit in someone's garden. Love to watch, like on Sunday, I'm really excited to watch the football final,
Oh, the
and
Lionesses,
yeah, the
yeah.
line. But look, they're just the simple things. But I have missed out on so many things: christenings, parties, barbecues. For a while, my wife Zoe, she was like, "I think everyone thinks I'm single because wherever I go, you're never here." And they, because I was on tour. I mean, I just want to get. I never want to completely leave it because I think it is like you. It's part of your DNA, and it's what makes
Yeah.
you tick. I'm just talking about
Oh,
jobs. I think that tour that we were involved in on Beauty and the Beast was
oh,
like a one-off. When I look back on it and I think about, every day we just laughed. There was
oh,
like no drama, just like proper belly laughed, and
yes.
just brilliant times. So I just go, God, that's 24 years ago. Where have those years gone? Like,
My goodness, it was, yeah, you're dead right. It was such a joyous tour, but also for a young performer to be learning off the likes of Stephen Matthews, Barry James, Annalene Beachy, dear Alistair Robbins. I felt so grateful of that experience. And it's so easy to forget, isn't it? That's why chats
yeah,
like these and connection is so lovely because it rekindles like happiness, which is great.
yeah.
I just wonder, we're fully paid up members of the Tall Actors Club, Nick, and has it ever hindered you? What I loved was when I initially graduated and entered the business, I was, auditioning with people, 5'10", 5'11", what I call a generic look,
Mm.
and there was me, Peter Crouch giving it Big Bird, thinking, oh, what chance have I got? And that moment when you realise actually having this uniqueness is heightening my chances of getting specific roles. That's a lovely feeling. I wonder if did you ever have any prejudice or and that moment when you thought, you know what, I'm torn, I'm bloody proud of this.
Yeah, I think you're right, definitely. And I think that's also been another thing because I'm not the norm. I knew I was never going to play certain roles. So I sort of was already prepared for a different career than the majority of people. And shows like Young Frankenstein, which I did, as soon as I walked in the room, I knew that I was almost halfway there because the height and the
Yeah.
look and everything. I'm glad of my height. I don't shy away from it like you. 6'7". Hello. I just feel lucky that I was glad I played Prince for UK Productions
Oh,
in
fantastic.
Sleeping Beauty, and I didn't think I'd ever get a Prince because I just thought they'll never put me against a girl. They just say you're too tall and everything. But no, I had a whale of a time doing that.
I was still playing the Prince with my hair sprinkled in my 40s, Nick, giving it One Direction and Cuban heels.
Yeah,
I've gone from Prince to Dame. I love it.
I'd love to do a sort of film where you're not a lead, you're not a part, but you're in part of the ensemble. Like Pirates of
Yeah.
the Caribbean, where you get booked for the whole film, but you're just
Oh,
one of 40 pirates on the boat.
how great would that be? My
Yeah.
goodness.
Or they're doing this Robin Hood at the moment out in Serbia or somewhere, and I thought again, I'd love to just be one of those guards or merry men that know
Yeah.
nothing, but he's just in it. So I've sort of been doing a little bit of detective work to see, what route I might have to try and go down, just to do something different, have a different experience, and you know, be part of a movie. Would be good fun.
You've done a bit of TV, Cilla with Sheridan for ITV, and is that something then that you'd like to, just dip into again?
Yeah, I think sometimes if I had a little bit more like get up and go, I'd probably be, out there trying to go. I want to do TV. I want to be in Doctors. I want to do this. But I've just kind of always gone, oh well, if it happens, sort of thing. But no, Scylla was a great experience. That just came out of they wanted some people to sing in it, so they were looking down the musical theatre route, and I played this. I mean, you could have been up for it as well.
I
Kingside
was up for
Taylor,
Scylla.
the Barbados years with Cliff Richard. But
Hey.
I auditioned for that, and he was love again, totally different experience. really lovely casting director, Andy. And I went to some random like church. They're all always random, like church hall
Yeah.
on a state in Vauxhall. And I walked in, and he had a little camcorder, and he was like, "Oh, you just done Chichester, you done Guys and Dolls. Oh, I love Guys and Dolls." And he said, "Oh, well, let's try and get you a TV job." And I thought, "Oh, that's really nice." Before I've even started, it feels like you're on my side. So, and obviously, I was all big and jazz hands, and he was like, "Let's just do it again, and just keep still, and just And so I just did what he told me to do, and then I got it, and I was like, but that was a really odd experience because I didn't have loads, but I had enough to feel like I need to be really on my game here because this isn't a medium or a sort of workspace that I'm used to.
Yeah.
And we went to a reading at the old ITV studios on the South Bank. And you go there and there's big tables all in a square and your name and your script sit there, and Sheridan comes in. She's had these teeth made, and I knew Sheridan from like the NYMT, so that was nice to see her. But as it's going along, and quite a few of them were from Liverpool, so the accent is brilliant. So I'm like, over my, in my mind, I keep saying sort of quietly under my breath, and people keep looking because what's the what you doing, right? Mumbling. You've got your little kind of, how do I get into the accent? Are they kids? Are they?
Yeah.
So I got through the read through, and that was all right. And then obviously you go up onto set. We were on location somewhere in Liverpool, and they'd built this cavern club, and there was loads of extras. And I was like, God, this is really big. This is a big deal. And go in. I had to learn guitar, to go for guitar lessons, and luckily you didn't really see in the shot, but I really had to practice that. And then we get on set, and I'm doing it with this guy, this first scene with Anirin, who came from Wales and has done really good TV stuff, Netflix things now, but he was in the original cast of Spring Awakening, and that sort of, gave him his springboard as this new, interesting, exciting actor. But we've got this scene, and we sort of do it, and the director's there, and just let's read through it, and he's just really kind of small, and and I'm thinking, oh God, I've pitched mine up here, so then I sort of instantly go, oh, I better just do it. And the director was like, yeah, great, let's go for a take. And I'm used to like, oh no, aren't we going to do it for another half an hour, and like sort of like go back and run it a few times, and then you do it, and they go, right, let's set again, let's go for another take. Great, let's redo the cameras, and you go, oh my God. And then like after about an hour of like 4 takes, that's it. And then you leave, and oh my God, I can't even look at it or check it or know that I've done. And I think it's a real skill. It is a skill to be able to deliver scenes that quickly.
Nic, you've got a lovely family. You sound like you've got a wonderful balance with life. And I just wondered, when you look back at your career so far, and you're a big family man now, what place do you feel in where you're just happiest? Like for me, I literally just love sitting with a coffee, just people watching the world go by, thinking, what, life's pretty good. What's that one moment for you, Nic, where you just think, you know what, I'm doing all right here?
When the 4 of us together, like, we went out on Tuesday was my birthday, and the 4 of us went out, and we took the dog, and we went to a couple of little pubs, a beer garden. We went to a few little old haunts in East London. Really chilled day, nothing spectacular. We weren't chasing, we've got to go to this restaurant, or we're doing this the next. But, we've got a few friends that do that. They go, their lives are 100 miles an hour. And for me, it's all too chaotic and too all over. I like simplicity. I think now, Ben, actually, I think taking me a while, I think, sort of started to lose my way a little bit in my late 30s, and then sort of, the kids came along, and that was all great. And then COVID happened, and that was a good wake up call for many people because, sort of took a chance to really evaluate us. But I think now, and I think as I've sort of, entering my late 40s now, 3 years away from 50, which is like bizarre.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like I have everything. I just want to spend time with people. I really want to make memories and moments that aren't just all job related. I've got a lot of those, and I'm sort of getting to that point now where I'm almost like reflecting back on my life. I don't want to like live in the past, but I do have a past and a history, and there's certain people I think I'd just love to see them again. You know, I'd love to make that effort. And as we all know, life is busy and you can put things off. And there's been a few things certainly this last year, where it's given me a sort of, you know, impetus to think you shouldn't put things off, phone that person, make that arrangement, you know, because I've had a few friends suffer, you know, loss and different things and of my age, and you kind of go, you know, we're not invincible, we're not here, we're just passing through, and so just make the best of every moment you've got. You know, I'm happy, and that's all you can ask for, isn't it, really? So, and I know that whenever your name has come up in conversation with whoever I've worked with, be that performers or people, creators, people backstage, you're always spoken with such love, and people laugh straight away, which is always that's a good sign. People say, oh, how would you want to be remembered? Well, I'd like to be remembered like you, you know, like someone who made people laugh and feel good, you know.
Look, it's been wonderful to hear how happy you are, and what a career, and what a wonderful life you have, and it's just joyous to hear. Nic Greenshields, thank you so much for joining me on Benjy's Cafe podcast.
Thank you, Ben. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the wonderful Nic on Benjy's Cafe podcast. Don't forget, Nic is running the 2026 London Marathon in aid of target ovarian cancer. Please sponsor him if you can. I'll leave the link in the show notes. A fresh new episode of Benjy's Cafe podcast drops every Tuesday. Just find us wherever you get your podcasts. Give Benjy's Cafe a follow so every episode gets sent straight to your phone. Next week, in the last episode before a summer break and my wedding, woohoo! I'll be chatting to therapist and host of the chart-topping Sober Rebel podcast, Louisa Evans. I'll get the kettle on. Have a great day.